morning, everybody. This nice morning in the Netherlands. My name is Andre. I'm going to guide you this morning to direct banking and the features that we have on this application. Short-term, let's say, training, how to set it up with for today also Ponto involving, and see what you can do with direct banking and integrations. Before starting, I will go to have a little bit of agenda for this morning. I think we will manage to do this in approximately 1 hour. I want to go over how to connect the bank with Ponto. How do you do a setup of a direct banking account? Just a short introduction on the direct banking setup, what you can do with the setup itself, synchronization and reconciliation. That's one of the points I want to consider today. The basics of how to, let's say, set up payments which you can perform directly from Business Center into the Ponto portal. So the first thing for today, I want to show you connecting a bank. It's basically the wizard that we use for the first connection that we can do. But before we can do something like that, in the wizard itself, you can, let's say, make a side step to go to the Ponto site to create your, let's say, account at Ponto and your integration at Ponto, and to link your bank accounts. So that's the first step we always have to do. So I also will want to make that side step, just go into Ponto and show you a little bit how you make that integration over there. So let's start with Ponto, and from Ponto we will move down to this wizard. I will change my screen and go to another one. Ponto. This is the Ponto environment. I already created an account for myself. In that account, we have the possibility to let's say add your own bank accounts. So you make just a connection to your ABN AMRO, Rabo, KBC, or whatever bank you have. As long as it's an IBAN account, you can add those accounts in the Ponto integration. Ponto is, of course, PSD2, and it will follow the lead on that part also. So it's totally compliant with the European standard. First of all, now you see for me, I have a sandbox environment, so I can play around with some fake bank accounts and some fake statement lines, but just putting it back to a normal setting. I can make the add integration if you go to the accounts, and I can add account, and you will see that I can choose from banks which are, let's say, linked to Ponto. If you want to see if a bank is compliant with Ponto, you can do a bank search on the Ponto website if it's able to let's say receive payment information, but also make payments through the Ponto portal, and also maybe bulk payments. But for now, we have the sandbox. I will put it like this at the moment. Also, if we go to the accounts over here, I have only one account, also a little bit of a dummy account. I can just add different banks with different accounts, so that's also an option that we can have in this sandbox environment, and I already created an integration. What's important for connecting direct banking from Business Central, our Aiden app, to Ponto is that we have the integration. So you can create your accounts in Ponto, but if the accounts are created, you will have to make the integration to add those accounts to an integration. You can set up, let's say, one integration per Business Central company. In this integration, we have one bank account now that is the bank account that I added over here. And of course, I can also create multiple bank accounts for this integration. So you can have multiple bank accounts per integration, but you can only have one integration per Business Central company. The test integration has this bank account, and the important one is that if you create the test integration, on the right you see account information and payment initiation. If you just want to have the account information, so just importing and reconciliation of statement lines, you can create the integration. I can make a new one. Maybe I just will do that. Custom integration, you will see account information, payment initiation. And yeah, the first is just account information, statement lines, imports, and payment initiation. Then you can use also the Ponto portal for creating payments. I already see a question coming by. Yeah, in Business Central, you can have multiple companies, and you can also, yeah, make, let's say, one Ponto account and link that to one a Business Central company. But you can also create multiple integrations. So I can make one, let's say, account in Ponto, and I can make multiple integrations. So I can make another one over here. And I can create multiple accounts also. I will just take a fake bank over here. And I see some accounts available for that bank. I will just take this one, accept. So I have, let's say now, a new integration with new other bank accounts in there. And you see there's no account linked yet. So if I want to link an account, then I can take that second account that I just added and I confirm. At that point, I have just, let's say, one Ponto login. I have multiple integrations, and I can use one integration with the selective bank accounts in that integration for each separate Business Central company. So that's certainly possible. So this is the first step, making your integrations in Ponto, adding the correct bank accounts for that integration for your Business Central account, of course. And then you have the credentials, the client ID, and the client secret IDs. Important that you copy this to Notepad or something, because this to accounts we need for the wizard. When this is set, then you are basically ready for making the synchronization and integration in Business Central. I'll change my screen a little bit. Let's see if I can move over to the other screen. No, change it. So when I change to Business Central, and I start with the setup wizard. Of course, we need the license. In the license, in the wizard, you have the license. You have also, let's say, a job queue. If you have permissions in Business Central to create job queues, you can just say, yes, I want to create a job queue. What you can do with the job queue is you can set, let's say, specific fixed moments that you import your statement lines from Ponto. So you can have this full automated process. Ponto will do a, let's say, a fetch of the new statement lines from the bank, and then we can fetch those again with the job queue from Ponto. This is, let's say, what we just did with link to Ponto, create accounts, and so on. That is just been done in the separate screen. And then we have the client and the secret IDs. I think I have them somewhere already stored. So let me see if I can have them copied in there. If you lose your secret ID, you can always create that secret ID in Ponto, but be aware then that you also have to change this in Business Central to have an active connection. If validated the connection right now, I have an active connection and I can just finish. So basically, this is the wizard and making the connection itself. I see here another question. Okay, I have still not an open question for integration. What does it add specifically? Yeah, the only thing that the integration does, of course, we need the integration for the client and the secret ID to make the connection to Ponto. And of course, specific, you make that integration and just make those bank accounts that you use for that integration linked to Business Central. So if I have another company in Business Central, I can use the same client and secret ID, but I will fetch the same account information in a different company. So you want to have different integrations for different Business Central companies. Good. We make a connection. Now we can go to the direct banking accounts. So this is, let's say, the Aiden app. I'll just show you a little bit if we can show it over here. what we have with the installation, what we will install. List. There will be more item apps in here, but for now we have, let's say, app management. So for each item product that you install, you will have app management where we just keep some information about the endpoints and so on. Depending on what you have on your account, you need direct banking, then you will work with W1. If you want to have the specifics for the Dutch localization, you also need direct banking NL. You can, of course, use both in Business Central. For all other countries, yeah, we do not have separate, let's say, local apps. So most of the countries outside of the Netherlands will use just direct banking together with the W1 version. So you will only see direct banking and app management. Direct banking accounts. That's the first step that we have to follow after the wizard, because we have the connection, but we don't see any accounts yet. So with the synchronized accounts, we will just go look at that integration that we have just created and linked to each other, and we will fetch the accounts that are in that integration. What we have to do right now is to make a link to the bank account in Business Central. So for that, we are going to open the direct banking account itself. Go to the general. So we have here the reference over here of the IBAN account that we just linked. And now we open the bank account from Business Central, and we go to search for the same IBAN. If you try to link, attach a different bank, you will get an error about the IBAN is not correct. So you need the same IBAN on your bank account in Business Central. I think it's this one, just to be sure. No, it's not. Let's see which one did I use. No. Yeah, this one I need. Yeah, we can update, of course, the name with the name of the bank account in Business Central. This is a choice that we can show. This is the name of the bank in Ponto. If I just want to have the name for the bank account in Business Central, I click yes. If I want to use this name, I click no. I will just leave it like this. Right now, we have the direct banking NL. So for the NL, we can set up a template for the bank Giro journal. I will also just take I'll take this one. And last step that you have to proceed is to set this bank account to active. So now basically you are set to get your first transaction into Business Central. You also see on the right last transaction ID, it's all zeros right now. As soon as I start to import, this will change, and we will check the last ID of the last transaction that we just imported in Business Central itself. Just checking the questions also. I see a question. One question is, could you explain the setting, skip additional information? What does it do? Skip additional information is, let's say, we have an additional field in Ponto which can be imported in Business Central with additional information about references and so on. Some banks are very clear in that field what's in there, and some banks are just having, let's say, kind of rubbish in there, and just is not really nice to have it in your bank Giro or in your reconciliation journal. So you can just skip that one. I can show it later on when I make that import, and can show you what the difference is. And I have a question, what function do I miss out when I have installed the direct banking app but haven't installed Island App Management? If you do not install Island App Management, you basically cannot use the direct banking app, because also the app management will check also license information and so on, how many banks you can use with your license, and also some other telemetry information. Good. Also important, the currency, euro to euro. So if you have, let's say, for instance, a Rabo account with US dollars of British pounds, be sure that then the reference in Business Central is correct, but also the currency of that bank account in Business Central. Otherwise, you get the same message that we just did see. Well, I will just do this. Input transactions. First time. This is the only time you will see this, for the first time that you can import, and then you can choose how far you will go back to import your transactions. Of course, depending on the customer, how good or bad they are already using bank accounts and import statements, and how far they are just balanced out the banks. Preferably, of course, yesterday was the last statement in the old situation, and you go and continue in the new situation, and you just click this one, and you will have the correct balance directly from Ponto. I will now just go as far back as possible, because I do not have that money stabilized in my sandbox environment. And then it will try to import the statements. Statements over here. I will do this. Transactions. Give you more view about what we have. These are the statement lines that we just imported from Ponto. Also, you see the remittance information and the addition information. That's the question that we just did see. Skip addition information just means if I put this on yes, just so enable this, this part will not be in your bank Giro. If I leave it like this, we'll concatenate this field and this field in the bank Giro journal, or in the reconciliation journal. Over here, you see the transaction IDs. Last one that we just important is, I guess, the last one in this list. So the next time we do the job queue setup for the import, or we just do the manual import, we know we left on this statement line. Let's see. I will just go to quickly check on. Yes. Before I will say create reconciliation line, I want to show you the direct banking setup. So this is, let's say, the setup that we can control a little bit how we are going to use direct banking. Of course, the license, you see the account information of your Ponto integration. You see that it's an active connection. And import all bank accounts is, maybe you didn't see it just yet. If you add bank accounts in Ponto, you can also add, for instance, saving accounts and so on. But most of the time it will be checking accounts. So now it's only checking what is integrated in this Business Central environment. So this is just current information. Then we have the general tab. We can set up some login with communication login that we can, that's more or less fetch, let's say, the imports on another way with the API structures. And if you put this all on enabled, you will have a direct banking log where you can see some information that's going on in the in and outgoing of bank input transactions and synchronizations and so on. So you can see some information over here, how everything is going. It's more or less, maybe it can help if there are some errors. Then we have the payment authorization signed from Business Central. And sign for payment providers portal. Basically, this means if we are going to use payment initiation, so we're going to do payments from Business Central and from direct banking, we can just create the payment link in the portal itself, but also we have the possibility to make, let's say, the starting point of the payment in Business Central. So that's a choice that you can make depending on how your process is. If you have, for instance, a user that is only authorizing the payments, but it's not a Business Central user, well, best way to just put it to the Ponto account to just go and log into Ponto and make the payments and authorize the payments over there. Otherwise, you can just use a Business Central. Localization use, we have now the possibility to use the W1 and the NL. If I put it on the W1, basically I will use the payment application, and the bank reconciliation can be separated over that one. So we can just reconcile on the payment application. Then you have to choose you can choose if you want to use the standard W1 reconciliation or you want to use our additional matching reconciliation table. You have the account matching, skip counterpart reference, and skip account number search. Basically, the first one is if you have, for instance, a business environment with a lot of customers which are doing payments, but you do not store the IBAN references in the accounts of the customer. Then it's not, let's say, really important to search for the IBAN reference when reconciliation takes place. So we just do that once, and then we say, okay, it's not needed because we will not find any IBAN. And this is about account numbers, the customer number of the Business Central. If it's used in the payment remittance information, you can use this also to find, let's say, the customer based on the customer number. So currently it's on W1. So that always means that it changes also what we see over here. So I changed it from the NL to W1. So I will just go out of this page and back in. And you see now that it's changed on the top. Now we have the W1 version. So it will just create a reconciliation journal instead of a Bankgiro journal. Functionality wise, it should be the same. Well, what's more? We have, of course, the create reconciliation lines, the manual process. So the import transactions is the import of the transactions, and the create reconciliation line is manual processing those lines that we have over here. So I can just click create reconciliation lines, and that will just process the lines that you see on the bottom. So they are gone right now. And if I open a reconciliation journal, and I will open this journal, then depending on some settings, this is just Business Central itself. On application rules, you see on the match confidence on the left high and on high text and so on. So this is something that you can control in your application rules of Business Central. You see the transaction text, the additional information, and the other remittance information is now combined. So just for good sake, I will delete it again, and I go back to my transaction archive. So everything is also archived. I can set everything to a set unprocessed. And if we now do the skip, so then this should be skipped. And also then is being skipped in the transaction text. So if there is a lot of rubbish in there, you can just say skip and it will not be there. Interesting to see also that we have that matching entry table that we use. And if there is, let's say, the additional information over there, you will see that it applying is a little bit less right now because we skipped that part. Of course, that's something, that you have to check with the customer itself if it's relevant information, yes or no. What do we see more? Of course, we have high none. Or I will just delete it again, and I'll put the skip on false again. have more. So basically, in this screen, I have only two which are not really reconciled. Of course, if it's not reconciled, you can do it yourself. Find and search for the correct one. If you need, let's say, information just from the text, you can use high text to account, which you can use, and then I can show it. For instance, let's see where it is. Manual, yeah, map text to account. So this is now none, and I can say map text to account, and it will push this into a field. Then you can set GL accounts for this one. I will just take the same as this one. And now the next time when I delete this, reconciliation journal, and I'll do again, set, make the rounds, and open the reconciliation journal. And then you will see that it's also picked up by the text to account mapping. So you can more or less do some additional mapping for, let's say, statement lines that are not directly used for customer or vendors, but just created for additional cost or payment with, how do we call it, ATM machines or something like that. What else? Of course, you see some additional information that we add on the customer information that you see over here, but also the match confidence that you see over here. We can click on the match confidence and it will show you a little bit about what we did find in the background in the matching entry table on this match. So the confidence is high because the related party matched fully on the document number. Dus it did find the document number, and it did also not. Yeah, well, the transaction now it's perfectly 5.01, and based on an outstanding customer ledger entry. Of course, this is the ideal situation. This will not be, let's say, a situation that you can find on like a live and operational situation, because maybe your customer is paying multiple invoices, so one amount, and we have multiple customer ledger entries for that one amount. If the total adds up and let's say all additional information is found, we will match that statement line. But if one of the two is off, we will not match. Then it will be an individual and a manual application at that point. So this is, let's say, the W1 version, and how you can use it. Basically, if everything is okay, and I will also add this one, then we can the post payment only or post and reconcile bank account, so we can have multiple situation that you can just use Business Central to post your statement lines, and then you are just back in Business Central itself instead of the direct banking application. For now, I will just delete this one again and go back. And I'll change this one to the Dutch version just to see the differences. I have to go close the page, open the page again. I can go back to my transaction archive. Everything is ready to be processed again, and I can do, let's say, the same processing over here, but instead of the reconciliation journal, we will see a Bank Giro journal, and yeah, well, basically the same information that you see over here about applied, unknown, or changed, also being changed because of a text to account. So that's our possibilities that you also just have in the same way in the NL version that you have in the W1 version. What did we add on the NL version? I guess I can show you only this. Oh, that's not working, of course. Then I have to change it a little bit. The only thing that is different from the direct banking extension installed, or yes or no, is that we have, let's say, the matching actions that you see over here. And you can just see why we did accept, or we have a log, or something else. And then you can just act upon that one and see the same information over here about why we do think it's accepted, or why we think it's a log, because we have multiple custom ledger entries with the same amount, or we found multiple document numbers. So if something is off, this will then not be accepted, but will be a log, and will guide you a little bit what we think it can be the match, but we are not certain. Let's see. Some questions in between the lines. Just read some questions right now. Have a moment, please. Yes, question about the bullet payments. I will come back to that later. When we go into explain a little bit about how we can set up the payments with direct banking, and also about regex. Yeah, regex is something that you can use for certain banks. You can enable regex over here. Regex patterns, we have the patterns for a few banks, but yeah, basically this is all we have right now because we do not have the input of other banks at this point. What you can do with regex, you can also play with regex, and you create your own regex if you want to. All what you can achieve with this is we have that statement information and your additional information, and with regex you can say for the statement information, I want only, for instance, a part of that information being in the journal. For instance, we see on, I think, KBC Bank, also a little bit depending on the bank, that we have information on your statements about the customer name, the IBAN reference. Those are already separate fields, but we have also the information in the remittance info. And we don't need it in the remittance info. We are only interested in, for instance, invoice number or other remarks that we have over there. So using regex, you can, let's say, more or less manipulate a little bit how you want to see your text in your bank Giro or in your reconciliation journal, instead of having all kinds of double information in there. So for instance, this one basically says we have something in the pattern saying I want only the information from the remittance which is, let's say, behind the tekstomschrijving. This is just free to play with. I think there is a website called regex 101 or something that you can learn a little bit about what all these asterisks and slashes and so on mean. But it is a little bit try to figure out if you can use it and how you can use it, also depending on the information that you get from the bank in your statement lines. Ja, oké. Belgium, OGM gestructureerde mededeling. Yes, there's a question about the Belgium version for the structured message. There is a possibility that we add that payment reference in the payment reference table. Maybe I can show you. That's something new in the latest release. We have the matching entries for each customer ledger entry or each posted invoice purchase or sales. We create a record in this entry table. For structured messages, we have the payment reference over here. So basically, that structured message is something Belgium. We do not do it in the W1 or in the Dutch version, but if you have the possibility to put that structured reference over here, we will check that field when we are going to do the reconciliation, so you can then find the correct information over there. So yes, you can, but you need a little bit of an extension that you fill this payment reference over here. Another question, how can you what I understand from the question is how can you apply a new statement line if there's no document in the text? Basically, you can't. The only thing that you can apply it if maybe we have one direct correct amount in that statement line that is linked to one reference, then we can apply. Otherwise, this will be a manual application that you need. So we need more references to do a good application. And the last question that we have over here, can we import bank transaction in bank account reconciliation and not then payment and not then the payment reconciliation journal? Yes, you also can do it differently. But I prefer to do it, let's say, separately. So you have your vendor payments and then also your customer payments separate from each other. But we have the setting, of course, to just change it. And this is the behavior of Business Central itself. So if we go back to the W1 version, if you just put it on bank reconciliation, then it will open the bank reconciliation journal in your direct banking account. So it looks a little bit different, but that's possible. Let's see, that's the last question for now on that part. So basically, this is all about import and reconciliation. And just one thing I want to show you is the job queue entries. This one, when I go to the wizard and I say I want to create a job queue entry and enable that one, it will create this code unit and job queue entry. And this will do an import of the statement lines once a day or multiple times a day, depending on how you set it up. So basically, you only have to do something about recurrency and so on. Run the job, and the statements will directly be in your bank Giro or in your reconciliation journal. So the next day that you're in the office, you will just fetch a cup of coffee, you will open your bank Giro, and you will see directly this information for each day. Of course, if you have the job queue, it's also possible to just make that in manual import itself. That's no issue. Yeah, for the payment side, that's the other part then. If you're also going to use Business Central 1.0 for payment initiation, you need some additional setup. Basically, what we do is just use the standard payment journals from Business Central or the telebanking if you have the Dutch version. That is all standard. The only thing what we can is how are we going to use bulk payments. First of all, you have to check if the banks and Ponto supports bulk payments. Then you can set up your bulk payments that you want to use bulk payments. And yeah, there is also a possibility that you want to say, okay, I want to just create bulk payments if we have 4 or 5 or 10 different vendors to be paid in one batch. this is something that is there. We use it on Rabobank. I don't know if every bank is the same on this one. On the portal, it can be that the bulk payment can be, let's say, one line with a amount, and then the details are underneath that amount. So you have to double click on some parts. But there's also the possibility that you have to, let's say, see it then differently, and so you can set the split bulk payments transactions in the bank portal. So it's basically how it's being shown in the portal itself. So don't know if it's for every bank the same, but for Rabobank it certainly shows the transaction differently in the portal of the Rabobank. So this is a little bit of the part of the setup, and I think yeah, there is also a question about this. Yeah, I think the question is about how does it react on the portal of the bank, and how do you get it back? And that's very different per bank, how we can see the bulk payments back. Sometimes it's just one batch, one amount, and sometimes it's just let's say the statement line separately and then completely split. We cannot control that part, unfortunately. So that's a little bit depending how the bank process the statements itself. Okay. I think see why the transaction count is one of the questions also I see. Yeah. Basically, I don't think it's used very often. So I guess most of the time this will be empty, because if you are just using bulk, you want to have it already in bulk. If you have, for instance, two separate vendors which are going to be paid. But there is a possibility to just set it. Also important, you see on the left side, skip duplicate end-to-end ID check. If you notice that you have transactions in this part, a lot of transactions, please put this one on. So this little bit means that we will not, let's say, check transactions with end-to-end IDs. These are the same. Some banks have the field end-to-end ID filled with C email or something like that. And if you have 5 transactions with C email in one job queue import or in just manual import, it will all come into this separate table to do a double check, because then we think it's maybe a duplicate, but it's really not. Then you can manipulate this with just put this one on enabled, and it will all go through and be available in the journal itself. Well, outgoing payments is basically Business Central. The only thing that we need for outgoing payments is, and then just for the Dutch viewers, the only thing that has to be done if you have, let's see, where is it? So that doesn't really matter now. I will do this one. Is the export protocol. So if you are running with telebanking, you will have the transaction mode enabled. You will have a transaction mode linked to a vendor. And the only thing you have to do is change the export protocol in Direct Banking and vendor. And instead of creating a SEPA XML, it will create a payment in Ponto or in Business Central. Are you using W1? Then you are not having the transaction mode available. And then we have the payment export format over here. And of course, also this is just the journal of the standard journal of W1. So depending on what you do, of course, over here, it will show you the information and you can send it out. And yeah, most important, if the vendors are correctly with all the information that we have, we can just use the bank account, which is created for the payment, and that is here, the B050. So you know the B050 has the export on Direct Banking, and then it will be sent out directly to Ponto. That's basically what you see over here, or within the telebanking structure. The proposal is just basic proposals. Sorry, this one. You just collect the everything that you need for the payment. The proposal is there, and you can just use the proposal like it is as using the standard. I don't know if I can. I do not have an error message, so I will process this line. And also over here, you see the export protocol is done automatically on settled Direct Banking because the vendor is set to that transaction mode. So basically, that's the only difference when using Direct Banking. Set the export protocols or the export journals correctly. Let's see. I don't see new questions. What else? With only one thing. If there are vendors, if there are, let's say, users that need something like G accounts or something like that. Payments. I need payments. Also additional on the Direct Banking that we provide is a G account payment. So you can set this up on the vendor card or on a purchase invoice with the G account codes, being a different bank account, and you make a split about the total amount that is going to pay to one account and the other half to another account, or just the amount that you can split. This can also be used in Telebankieren, only in Telebankieren. And that will split the vendor ledger entry in, let's say, the percentage that you have set over here in the proposal, and it will be then paid to different accounts through the portal. And otherwise, the rest is basic Business Central. Yeah, I think we have touched everything that we need to touch for now. Only one thing I did not touch or talked about is payment provider. For this is Default and Ponto. Of course, we have another provider called Cobase. Important to know, if you want to use Ponto, it's only European PSD2 IBAN related. If you have customers which have multiple accounts, foreign accounts, bank accounts, and so on, then you basically need something else. And that can be Cobase, of course. Cobase can handle IBAN accounts, but also non-IBAN accounts, payments to different non-IBAN accounts, and so on. Also, Cobase has a little bit higher potential on, let's say, having an overview in their own portal with all accounts over the world for one, let's say, global entity, and have, let's say, more or less better authorizations that you can set up over there in their portal. It's a different way of handling, and for bigger concerns, to have, let's say, multiple payments all around the world. Then you cannot use Ponto, but basically you can use it with Cobase. All other functionality that you see over here is the same, but then you can extend it a little bit more with non-IBAN accounts and non-IBAN banks. Let's see. Double check. So we handled the connection. We have the setup for the direct banking, set up the banking account, the synchronization and the reconciliation we discussed. Well, the direct banking payment is not much than, let's say, changing the export protocol, of course, and handling the payments. The job queue we discussed. One thing I did not mention, maybe I just for now, if we have sign for Business Central, if that is already in the setup, then each export that you make will start in this page. And also in this page, you will see if a payment status is already accepted or just unsigned, and so on. So this will redirect you to Ponto, or if you use Cobase, to Cobase, but that's more or less not important for Cobase because you're already doing everything from that portal. But basically, you see an overview of what's going on the Ponto side. If you're using the other setup, just in Ponto, you will see the information that there is an outstanding payment to be authorized in Ponto itself. So then the user is more or less working with Ponto instead of Business Central. Yeah, that's also the question that is here now. How does signing work from Business Central? So this is the part this from Business Central. The only thing that is changed if you use Business Central instead of the Ponto. Yeah, this is not. I will get an error if I click on this one because this is not linked. But basically, if you do the sign payment over here, it will go to the Ponto portal and it will just redirect you to your bank account that is linked to the payment process. So it just follows that structure. And I have a question. Does Ponto support the situation where two authorizations are needed? Yes, basically Ponto does the same. It's PSD2, but we know that there are some complications with certain banks that it's all about, let's say, setup in the bank portal, and sometimes it works just out of the blue, let's say, and sometimes you need a little bit of persistence to have some user on the bank help you out how to set this up. But there is a possibility to have two people signing. The statement status will then be different also over here. Then it's pending or validating or something else. So the first one will assign it in Ponto, then it will be redirected to the bank, and in the bank the second signing should take place. Are banks from Africa also supported? Well, I think not with Ponto. If you need something of that, you need to have, let's say, contact with Cobase. Maybe they can help you with that. And the last question, can we send SEPA file via Ponto, and can we use customer direct debit process also? And if you mean SEPA file and export, you can't, because it's just an API and an integration. So the SEPA file is basically what we do on the background, creating, let's say, the XML directly in Ponto. And yeah, and Ponto does not support direct debit at the moment, so we cannot offer that possibility. Yeah, this is the end of this session for today. I don't see any questions coming in, so I will end this session for now. No, well, still one question then. Documentation is available. You can search on our website iDempen.nl. You can find our documentation and links to our conference information, and also in the direct banking setup. If you have maybe a trial or demo, you can go and see some links to the manual itself. Good. Well, let's close this session. Have a nice day for today, and we see each other in maybe another session or another time. Thank you for listening in, and have a good day. Bye bye.